Okay, everybody, study session of October 26, 2021 is called to order. Donna, can you do the roll call for us, please?
Sure. Deputy Mayor Peterson,
Here.
Councilmember Bode,
Here.
Councilmember McDowell,
Present.
Mayor Dorsey,
Here.
Councilmember Schmidt, Councilmember Anesco. Where did he go?
Where did he go?
He was there. Councilmember Feast.
Here.
Well, where did Councilmember Anesco go?
Technical difficulties.
Yeah,
You have
Well,
my
we know he's here.
well, I'll watch for him to ask to join again.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and get started? First study item is an animal ordinance. City Manager Jeff Knighton has information to share with us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. An animal ordinance that you've all received a copy of has the strike through and underline versions of the things that we have added to address some of the concerns that we've heard in the community, and just in an effort to be able to enforce certain provisions of the code. Wanted to highlight a few of those provisions for you, and then I would welcome any discussion and questions as we move forward toward a hearing at a regular business meeting for this item on business and action. So kind of the first thing we did here is we made the definitions more robust. So it is very clear what we're trying to accomplish with this ordinance. One of the highlights, or one of the things that we have added, is offering a reduced fee if your pet is altered, spayed or neutered, and microchipped. So it's easy to return your pet to the owner, or return a pet to the owner. And then we have the provisions for at-large animals when any person persists despite a written warning with keeping the maximum number of animals. We want to try to limit that so we don't end up with basically kennel operations in residential neighborhoods. Several other things in here. It's quite a robust ordinance, but we've had several complaints from various neighborhoods around the city about wandering dogs, and those dogs doing their business on other people's yards, and we can't really do much about it. And this new ordinance gives us enforcement authority to be able to address those types of issues. And then, if you'll remember, I believe it was in late 2020, but it might have been very early this year, there was a young lady that addressed council regarding trucks riding in truck beds. So we added a provision to this ordinance that makes it unlawful for any person to transport any living animal on a running board offender in a truck bed without it being secure. She was concerned at the time about dogs falling out of the back of the truck. And that's something that we take a look at. We are a dog loving city for sure, and wanted to make sure that doesn't happen here in the city, if whatever we can do to avoid it. And then there is a violation piece of this that's new, which is one of the problems that we were having with enforcement of the previous chapter as written, is not a clear path. Where do we go once we've identified a violation? And that is in section 7.04.220. And then actually identifying and defining what a dangerous dog is, and provisions for a citizen or a city employee or anyone else to make a declaration that this is a dangerous dog. Kind of what that process is, outlines the appeal processes, those types of things. Those are the major highlights. There's obviously a lot more to the ordinance, but those are the highlights that I wanted to bring to you, and I am more than happy to answer any questions that you might have or listen to your discussion so we can refine this a little bit more to meet your objectives.
Eric Onisco?
Hi. As I'm reading this, we've also added cats to the mix. I'd probably be okay with most of this. I just don't think there's a need to add cats to this ordinance. Also, I wasn't aware that we had a limit on how many animals you could have.
Yeah, there are limit. I believed in this ordinance, we raised the limit from 3 to 4. But we do that. So, and those are over 6 months. So if you have a litter of puppies, this doesn't apply to you, or a litter of kittens. This wouldn't apply to that specific situation. And we do that to try to avoid those kennel operations in residential areas, because those can get quite loud and become a nuisance to the neighbors.
Okay. For the dogs, could we increase the 3 days to maybe a week? I mean, what if somebody's on vacation and left their animal with a family member and they don't know that to call the city, and I hate for somebody to lose their dog in 3 days?
Yeah, that's the 3 days is when what council considered at the regular business meeting last week, they're transferred to the Kitsap Humane Society. And that's in order to keep our costs and expenses down for the temporary shelter downtown here. The other thing I wanted to point out is all of these provisions are really complaint driven. We have no intention of riding through neighborhoods and trying to find people to cite. This is all based on complaints from nearby neighbors.
Okay, one more. We had talked when Chief Moody was here about lifetime registrations for dogs. Did we move away from that?
That's not something we have in here, but certainly something we can consider. Particularly if that might be a benefit or a incentive for microchip and altered.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like Mr. Bode has a comment. Maybe.
Yes, I do. No, I'm definitely down for it with the cats. Just seeing how many neighborhoods have cats, how overpopulated and how overcrowded kitten rescue gets. I mean, cats are definitely an issue. And not only that, when cats get under your house and they're just like neighborhood cats because someone's letting their cat just breed and breed and breed, they destroy them. What cats do peeing under homes, I've got 2 of them right now I'm cleaning up. It's atrocious. And it's all because we have non-spayed and neuter cats that are just starting to overtake these little areas. So I believe it's very important to have cats as a part of this as well. And I love that there's actually some teeth to it. So there's some level of enforcement, because like you said before, there was no level of enforcement at all on any of this.
Right.
So I'm pretty much all for this one.
Anyone else?
Deidre.
Yes.
Oh, hi, Deidre.
Hi, Kevin. So just a couple of things. One, Councilmember Onisco already touched on, which was the discussion about a lifetime registration, which we had discussed at an earlier point with SPD. And if at that point, there was also discussion about whether SPD was able to microchip the animals at that time. So wondering if that's something that's been explored or something that we can look at, because I know we've been getting a lot of calls from folks who are having trouble getting their pets into the vet. So if that is the only service that an animal needs, it would be nice if we could just handle that at the same time. I also wondered if, it's page 12 of the packet, but I wonder if we need to have a specific call out about chasing cars, et cetera, because that's a dog at large, which we address in the next paragraph. It just seems redundant to me. I mean, have a leaf law. So that was one thing that caught my eye. And then the maximum number being 4. That used to be dogs, now it's dogs and cats. Doesn't affect me personally, but I wonder how the community feels about that number and why we chose 4 as the magic number.
4 because it seems to be, after the research we've done with various municipalities who have similar ordinances, 4 was the number, again, of adult animals, not litters of puppies and kittens, was the number most often used in the ordinances that we did research on around our region. As far as the microchipping, We can certainly look into that. I don't know what the equipment costs to be able to do it. I'm sure it's not that expensive. And with the addition of an additional code enforcement officer in the council's budget for 2022, I think we would be able to handle that. But I will definitely check into it.
Thanks.
Kathy McDowell?
Then we come to the subject of chickens. So what's the number of chickens somebody can have?
So this is, let's see if I can get to the right section here.
Isn't it 0?
Well, it's 0. It's 0 roosters, but there are a certain number of chickens.
To me, it was 3 or 4.
Yeah, so we would increase that. It was 3 in the current ordinance. It's 3 for both dogs and cats. And that would apply to chickens as well, or pot-bellied pigs or whatever.
Okay, so we could have 4 at least. Okay.
Yeah, up to 4, but no roosters.
No, there's a couple roosters in the neighborhood.
I have heard them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yeah, I don't have a ton to really add at this point. I'm more interested in the public input on this and seeing what we hear. If I hear complaints related to dogs and cats, it comes to the noise, nuisance issues, dangerous animals running, without, not on a leash or not in a yard or something like that. And I think that's kind of commonplace. So yeah, I'm interested in the public input on this. And the only other thing, Kathy, Council Member McDowell brought up chickens. The only other thing that I know we deal with in the city is an increasing rodent population that can be traced back to backyard chickens and people throwing feed down on the ground and things like that. And it just increases the likelihood of those types of nuisances in the community. But I'm not sure if it needs to be addressed via this ordinance or what, but I do know from a health and, sort of wellness perspective, anything we can kind of do to educate on better practices with that as well, it would be probably helpful for me. I have a few neighbors that I've sent this to that I know have some thoughts, and I'll be happy to share that when I get some feedback.
Megan?
I just want to make sure that as we're taking a look at lifetime licenses, annual licenses, that we're taking a look at existing costs, increasing costs, long-term costs, and making sure that we're, figuring out how we're paying for the enforcement, if we're taking on cats into our facility, does that mean, again, is there additional equipment and things like that we need? Do our staff need to be trained if we're going to be putting the microchip in? Is there a technician certification that they need or something like that? So costs are my consideration.
Yeah, so what we would have, we currently have a $30 license fee. The staff proposal would be for altered or microchipped animals to the fee being reduced to 20. And those are for the annual. And we can look at what the lifetime cost would be. There's economies of scale, if you figure the average life of a pet, what that would equal out to. But I tend to think, and we can verify this with actual data as we go forward, but I tend to think that a lifetime registration would be less impact on the staff, since you're not seeing the same application every year. But we can go back and look at that and make sure we have the data to point to.
Peter, you have something else?
Only if everyone else has had a chance. The other couple things I noticed, speaking to the lifetime again, things that I'm wondering is is the intent of having the dog's license, is this a revenue generator, or is the intent to ensure compliance and to make sure that we're able to return pets safely? Because if that's the case, it seems simpler to me to have a one-time registration than an annual. And I'll tell you from my personal experience, when we got our puppy, I went to the Civic Center to go apply for my dog license. They said, oh no, you have to wait until she's 6 months old. And so then I came back and they said, but we can take your payment. You need to have a check. And it just really cumbersome process. So again, as we're moving to some of these more technical payment options, et cetera, and integrated, making it easy. And you know, if it is something that's an annual, is there a quick reminder that goes out that says, hey, it's time to renew, that kind of thing, and kind of looking again at what the intent of those pieces are. The other thing I wanted to note is that under definitions, a leash is listed as 6 feet, but when you get down to dogs at large, it says leash or chain not exceeding 8 feet. So pick one. If it says leash and we define leash, then I don't know if we need to again call out the specified length. And then have we reached out to the Humane Society, Adopt a Pet, Kitten Rescue to get their feedback on this as of yet?
Not yet, but we absolutely will before it comes before the council in a regular business meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Deidre, that the leash needs to be, you know, defined a little better, I think. Because, you know, some of these leashes you see are those extendable ones, and they go out 20 feet or whatever. So I don't really care what it is, just I think we need to define it better. And as far as the including cats, we need to do something about the cats. I agree with James on that a little bit, because I know I've feral cats in our neighborhood.
Whoops, sorry.
I think that the neighbor, you know, took care of it themselves finally.
I just shut that off. Okay.
And so, you know, and I know I've had complaints about other feral cats up on Wyandotte. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Eric?
I just want to move back to cats. We have a feral cat problem. I'm not sure we have a cat problem from citizens having cats. And don't forget that cats are probably eating these rats, these feral cats. So, I mean, I get treats every day at my back door. I have no critters, no mole holes in my yard where my neighbors have mole holes. So I still think that this looks pretty good. I don't think that we should burden people with cats, registering cats. And we do have a feral cat problem. If we want to deal with that, we should probably deal with that.
Yeah, it might be a total different ordinance or something, but yeah, you don't get too many complaints about homeowner with, you know, one or two cats. I mean, that's usually not the problem. So
Yeah.
And just to kind of follow up, I think it's just a good call to focus on the public health perspective, as well as just kind of come back and reread through this. And, you know, does it hit the public health issues and the nuisance issues? And then from the fee structures and things like that related to, you know, impounding a pet, still sounds funny to me to hear that, but impounding a dog or something like that. It just needs to cover the cost of doing business on that front, and I'm supportive of that. So, thanks.
Yeah, and we will, so we'll take all the input the council's given us tonight, rework the ordinance a little bit, and we'll schedule it for an upcoming agenda. Make sure we reach out to those affected stakeholders, as Deputy Mayor Peterson mentioned, before that comes, and incorporate some of their feedback into the ordinance as well. Looking at the calendar, I don't think that it's likely that it will come before council in 2021. But very early 2022 is when we expect it. So we're open to further suggestions on this issue, just to make sure we meet the needs of the entire city.
Okay. Shall we move on? Our last study item is regarding our new city logo. City Manager Jeff Knighton has a few comments, and then we're going to turn it over to Mary Ricker for more detail.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. So a couple of things that I wanted to mention in particular with this new logo. With the rebranding process that we have embarked on, we are looking at creating a unique sense of place. A unique sense of place helps us to compete. And that was called out in compete in the marketplace. That was called out specifically in the economic development study that council commissioned in 2018, presented to council in August of 18, and then finalized, I believe, in November of that year. Specifically, the action step 1.3.1 as part of that plan said to coordinate a consistent and unique brand is incredibly important for the economic development efforts for the city. And that's what we've tried to do here. The idea is to, again, create that unique sense of place and highlight our unique characteristics. What are we? What we are, basically. What sort of investments are we trying to attract? And that's what our brand is all about. So to all those that helped us with the survey several months ago, where we asked for the 3 unique words and phrases that describe the community to you, those responses were very helpful. We received about 70 of them, and they were used as part of the development of the designs that you'll see tonight. I did want to point out, when we start working on or start taking a look at these designs, two things. One, we can play with the colors a little bit. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. The designs themselves, we don't want to change or suggest much change to the actual designs. I'm not the most creative person in the world, and I won't speak for Mary, but there's a reason we hired professionals to do these for us. So we would welcome your comments on those. The other thing I wanted to mention was what we have tonight are 5 designs, 5 unique designs. And we would like to get those narrowed down, if possible, to 3 or fewer. And then we're going to use our open town hall community engagement survey piece to survey the community and see what they think. And we'd like to have that open for 4 to 5 weeks, the survey, and then incorporate our new design with the launch of our new website in January, which is still on track. So with that, I will turn it over to Mary Ricker, our communications specialist, to run through the various design options.
Great. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. I'm Mary Ricker. I'm the city's communications specialist, and tonight we're going to look at some logo options. So let me share my screen really fast here. And let's see here. Okay. So like Jeff said, we've been working with a great local agency on this project, J-Ray. They have been fabulous to work with because I don't know about Jeff, but I have never gone through something like this before in terms of like a whole new logo for a city. So they have been great for us to work with. So when we started working with J-Ray, we came up with 2 goals for this new logo. And the first one is that residents should feel like the logo represents them and Shelton. And then how we measured this goal is by having at least 85% of the comments, which could be social media, open town hall, like Jeff mentioned, are positive and or supportive of the final option before we implement it. And the second goal that we identified, again, tying back into Jeff's intro, is that the new logo would support the city's efforts with economic development. According to the Economic Development Strategic Plan, our target industries have been identified as timber milling, specialized agriculture, hospitality and tourism, retail, and light industrial. And then how we measure success with this second goal is that our economic development partners and all of the city departments apply the logo and kind of brand standards with ease. And the new logo would support the goals identified in the Economic Development 5-year plan. And so when we started working with J-Ray, we came up with a list of criteria for what a new logo should be or how it should feel. And you can see that at the top of this slide. We wanted something that would feel relevant for 10 plus years, so not super trendy, but not so classic that it feels dated. Something really important for us with the logo is that it needs to scale for a lot of different applications, which you can see that long list below, which I'll get to in a second. Our new logo will need to work in black and white as well as color. It needs to stand out for tourism and visitors as well as representing residents. We are aiming for something new, not a refresh, which should not be scary. It is exciting that we are aiming for something new. Our current colors need to be modernized, and it should move us forward while representing the heritage of where we've come from in the past. And so the applications that I mentioned, that list is not all encompassing, but it's a good framework for us to think about when we have a logo, because this is not a process that's done overnight. This will be months, a year to do all of these things, and for us and you all to kind of decide how we'd like to incorporate the logo throughout the city. And so on this slide, you see a lot of other cities' logos, and we wanted to keep these in mind while starting this process because we want to stand out. We're a unique place and our logo should match that. And something that you might notice when looking at these other cities' logos are that a lot of them incorporate trees, water, mountains, very classic Washington or Pacific Northwest things that we wanted to stand out from that if possible. And so our process, we have been working with J-Ray to develop these options that you'll look at tonight. We have 5 to show you today, and then we're going to recommend 3 to move forward for residents to vote on. And so our first concepts are inspired by the great blue heron, and according to North American native tradition, the blue heron brings messages of self-determination and self-reliance. And they also represent an ability to progress and evolve, which are all great values for us to work on as a city and to have represented in a potential logo. And the heron also serves as a symbol of this area without using water or a tree. So this is our first logo concept. So you can see that it incorporates the blue heron. It's really clean, very modern looking, and something that Jeff mentioned, which you'll see on this next slide, and that I didn't really even know before starting this process, is that there can be slight variations of a logo depending on the application. Because if you'll remember, the applications list was really long, and there needs to be a different feeling for different things. For example, a police car or a utility bill notice might need a different feel than a sign on the Civic Center itself. But you'll notice looking at these that it's all the same logo. You'll see on the lower right, it's the same as the previous slide that I showed you, but you're working with a color palette. So you've got some grays, some navies, and that periwinkle blue represented on this first logo concept. And then these are mock-ups. So mock-ups are really helpful for seeing how a logo could look on a variety of mediums. So you'll see on the top left, we kind of have a Civic Center like parking sign. Underneath that, we have a t-shirt, and to the right, we have a welcome banner. Something to look at again on this, like I said, is that the logos themselves, you'll see the top has the white text and underneath it has the periwinkle text for Shelton, but they're all recognizable together as being part of the same brand identity for Shelton. And you'll see this reflected on all of the logo concepts that we're showing you this evening. Okay, so this is our second logo concept, and it also incorporates the heron, but it brings in this marigold color that's really interesting, I think. And because it's this shape, it's a little more classic, but since it's oval versus a circle like a traditional city seal would be, it feels a little more modern. It has like the 1890 underneath here. So some interesting details to look at in this logo mock-up. And you'll see here, like I said, it's all the same logo, but these are different potential applications of the logo. So there's lots of room to kind of make these fit the applications that we need as a city. Okay, and these are the mock-ups. So we have another welcome banner over here, nice little hoodie up top, and then another Civic Center operations sign. So these next logo concepts are more inspired by Shelton's heritage, and you'll remember from that criteria list that that was something that we identified as maybe wanting to focus on having that represented in a logo. So this concept is a very obvious kind of representation of our heritage with this two-person saw underneath. And it's very classic, it's very timeless, kind of classic font represented here. And then we have the potential color schemes up here. These green and tan are also the colors of my alma mater, so I like those. But these are some different color examples here. And then we have some mock-ups of this logo. And so you have this nice hoodie, a little like park sign underneath here, and to the right we have the map. And you'll notice too with these mock-ups that like the hoodie and this permanent sign to the right have the white text, and then the sign underneath has the green text. So again, these are all very workable to our needs as a city. And so this next example also incorporates our heritage, but it is a little more modern compared to the previous example. And so it's a better balance of our past and our future, which I, for one, actually really like. And then here are some different kind of application options. This one is a little different because in addition to having the color scheme options on the lower right, you'll see that it's kind of encompassed in the box. So that's an interesting application to consider for our needs. And then these mock-ups, I think, really illustrate this idea of a logo can work for us. So you'll see this hat on the upper left kind of has the like sunset background behind the mountains. And then underneath we have this bike rack, and they got rid of the city of above and the Washington underneath, and they just added the word bike. So it really communicates what we need to communicate while still being very recognizable as a logo. And then we have another Civic Center parking lot sign and this nice polo on the bottom right. Okay, and this next concept takes several unique aspects of Shelton and combines them into sort of one representative graphic. And so this is our concept, and you'll see a tree in the center here, and then a fish over here, a mushroom, and then oysters down here. And this logo can definitely be represented in a lot of really unique ways, as you can see on these mock-ups or these different color palettes on this slide. So this logo, don't let the colors of the logo, the tree and the fish, you know, don't let that be overwhelming, because we can definitely play around with that. And then we have some mock-ups here. We have this really nice, really clean door decal, this t-shirt, and then the welcome banner over here. So it has a really unique look for the different applications that we could have. Okay, so our recommendation is to move forward on these top three for the community to vote on. We've had a lot of discussion with the design team, and we want to bring these forward to the people, the residents of Shelton, and see what they think, but we also want to see what you all think. So I have two questions that the design team provided, kind of just to guide our discussion on this. So I think if it works for you all, I'll just read the first one, we can talk about it, and then we can go back and read through the second one. So the first question that I have for you all is, we'd like to see where each of you are at. If you had to vote on just one of these 5 logos, so all 5, as they currently stand, which one would you vote for and why? So if we want to talk about that. And I can go back to any, I know this is a lot to take in, so I can definitely go back if you want to look at mock-ups and things like that.
I like 2.
Okay.
I think that's probably one of the first saws used here in Shelton cutting wood. And I think it's also for future.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I like, if I have to pick one, I like 2.
Councilmember McDowell has her hand raised, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have a couple things. The heron is a beautiful bird. I grew up here in Shelton, and I don't see any correlation between Shelton and the blue heron.
Okay.
And I think people coming into town and visiting would go like, what does that have to do? I thought Shelton was a logging town, Christmas town, USA. So that's one comment.
Okay.
Then, and I think instead of a blue heron in there, I think like a tree or a logger, a small picture of a logger in there. I don't know how that would do it. If that would help. But also number 4, could the fish be a little more look like a fish?
We could take that feedback back. Absolutely. We'll take all this feedback back.
Because I'm looking at it and I'm going, where's the fish? What end of the fish is that? So anyway,
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts.
Mr. Bode?
I like 3, but I kind of like it for opposite of the reason of like some of what we were talking about, like wanting it to totally represent us. I like that it kind of is nondescript and we could grow from there into other things if our identity changes and we don't have to completely rebrand. We could go from a logging town to a shellfish town if we chose to, and it wouldn't be too challenging. It just doesn't overly represent anything, but it's neat and it's clean, and I like that.
I agree with James. Number 2, at first I was like, oh yeah, that's totally us. And then when I thought about, the movement of the water, the skyline of the mountains, our heritage of timber, seeing the mock-ups of, our beautiful sunsets that represent, maybe those are mountains. Again, maybe they are a stream, maybe they are a bike trail. Well, that like the bike ban, indicated. So I went James. I think 3 allows us to grow from there.
Joe, do you have a comment?
Oh, this is one of those moments again. I am more interested in what the public's feedback is on this, but if I had to choose one today, I'd be leaning towards number 2. But the things that kept me away from 1 and 3, I agree with the top 3. Absolutely agree with the top 3. The things that kept me away from 1 and 3 right now, number 3 looks like Shelton Hills at the moment. And if it had mountains, I'd probably be solid on number 3. And because Bode nailed it, just for that reason, when you say 10 years or so, I think that can modernize with the city. And then, my other comment related to number 1, if we're really considering a rebranding effort, number 1 is the best example of that, I think. I'm not the creative mind though. So, where are we in our focus on clean water and blue herons are fish, they fish, right? And to open up those waters someday in the Hammersley for fishing and those goals like that. Like I said, that one kind of fits more logically to me in a rebranding campaign, but I'm not I'm not a creative visual person.
No, that's
so.
good feedback. You don't have to be a creative professional to be able to give good feedback. That's good to know. You don't have to consider yourself creative to give good feedback. So
So I think that I would probably, if I had to pick one today,
okay.
lean towards number 3.
Okay.
The pause about that is that my eye goes to, it looks like a graph and it looks like it's declining, which doesn't look great from I have a marketing way background. And so that kind of kills me. I love the color palette of number 1, but I don't like the idea of using a blue heron, not only to Kathy's point, because it's not common to see one, but that Port of Shelton already has one on the marina signage, and Capital Land Trust prominently displays it in their logo. So I think if we're looking for a unique identity, then fit. Again, I think number 1 is probably the best color palette if we're looking for modern and kind of some room to play. I do think the S looks like the Seattle Kraken. I'm glad we're not using 5 because it looks like Oregon Ducks to me, and I feel like you'll get some strong feedback in this area.
Yes.
But I know enough to know stay
Big
away.
time.
So, and I agree, I'm glad that 4 and 5 dropped off the list, but I have to be perfectly honest, I'm not super wowed by any of these. And so when you say, we want 85% positive feedback, what's the threshold for participation from the citizenry? And if we don't get that, what does that look like?
So I think the goal is 85% feedback. I don't think that's a requirement.
Can I go back very quickly here?
All right.
Mine says at least 85% of comments being positive before we'd implement. That's how
We did it. We had positive and or supportive. So that is something to keep in mind. So
All right, I'll throw my 2 cents.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Megan.
I think that what we're looking for, Mary, is a little bit more solid goal around, okay, we have approximately 10,000 residents, what is the general percentage of feedback, that we get from our residents? And then from there is that 85%. So if we on average get about 120 people giving us feedback on things, like how do we gauge success from what our base is? Did I get that, Councilman Peterson?
Yeah, I mean, for example, with events, a successful event is typically 10 to 30% of your association, right? So I don't know what that magic number is in the marketing world, but if we only had 70 survey responses, my question is twofold. What is that magic number of participants? And then of those positive feedback, the second piece is what is the communications outreach plan to ensure that we are, as Joe pointed to, really hearing from folks about what resonates with them and what they feel represents the city.
Sure. I think the communications piece of it is we would use the OpenGov Town Hall like we've used in the past, and we got fairly robust responses when we asked open-ended questions. I think we would have a more robust response with this more close-ended question. We would definitely have social media platforms, of course, would promote it, and radio interviews and those types of things. And that's another reason why we would want to leave the survey open as long as 4 to 5 weeks, is to make sure we give every possible opportunity for someone to share their view with us.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Okay, I'll throw my 2 cents worth in. Mary, could you go back to the pictures of the logo?
All of them kind of on the same slide. Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Let me go very quickly here to the end of this presentation. Okay, there we go. So these are the focus.
Yeah, I would have to say, see, this is why people don't ask me to down to Rocco anyway. They might ask me what I think, but they really don't, because I don't have much of an idea. But on the number 4, I agree with Kathy that I can't tell that that is really a fish.
Yeah, it's a
I
little
sure
more
as heck-
modern. Yeah.
I sure as heck can't tell that that's a oyster and a mushroom. What was that one down there? I see the mushroom, but anyway,
Yeah.
it just might be a little too busy, you know?
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know. I think I would lean a little bit toward number 2 just because of the heritage of the logging, but really number 2 or 3 would be fine with me.
Okay.
Well, cool. They did have a second question for you all to consider. So if you want, I'll just read it and we can talk about it. So the second question that they provided was, if you had to say yes or no right now, would you give approval to us carrying these 3 options on the top here forward for a community vote? So some of you kind of discussed this already, but something.
Yes.
I think the only other, so obviously for moving those 3 forward, I think the only other comment to make when I shared this with some of my friends and neighbors, they also were all over the map and which they liked best. I couldn't get consensus from anybody, which, hey, there we go. But one thing we all agreed on is we are ready for a new logo and a new brand. So that was consensus.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to point out that I didn't point out in my opener is that our current logo and our current brand has been the city's brand with minor changes, a little bit of color added since at least 1990. And I haven't changed much in the last 30 years, but I think most everything else has.
I'm fine with moving it forward.
I'm sorry, Megan, I didn't catch that.
I'm sorry, I said I'm fine with moving them forward.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think it might be worth looking at when we're seeking feedback from folks, maybe asking them to rank them in order of their favorites, because a lot of us might agree on the same top 2, and that might help kind of shake things out.
Okay, yeah, that's a good
Mentioned
idea.
there probably is a lot of room. And personally, I would like to add an option on there that people could say, I don't like any of these. I think it forces people to make a decision instead of just not participating.
I like that. And I would also add one option, what color palette do they
Gravitate toward
as well? Because you can add the color palettes for each, and they may like Councilmember Peterson recommended, the number 1 palette might work for something else.
So one of the things that we'll be doing, just kind of expand a little bit on the program, after a logo has been chosen, or assuming a logo has been chosen along with a color palette, we'll be creating a style guide so that each of our presentations, each of our, regardless of topic, each of our presentations, the way we communicate will all follow the same style guide, basically. And we wanted to reinforce that brand and also make sure we're consistent in the way we communicate both internally and externally.
Love that.
Were these the only 5? Were there only 5 or were there more?
I think they were just 5. Although, did we rule out one, Jeff? Do you remember?
There were a couple others at the initial meeting that dropped off, and then the more time was put into these particular 5. So if one of these 3 is not supported and no logo is chosen, then we'll try again. I don't see why that wouldn't be an option.
Okay,
If I were predicting anything, I would guess we're going to get feedback on making tweaks to one of these three. The public's going to want to see something a little different, kind of to Councilmember McDowell's point. I think if we're going to be working through this, that's going to be one of the content management kind of challenges we'll have to figure out.
Yeah, and like I said, these designs, the designs are at the moment rather static. We can start again from scratch, and we can play with the colors for sure. But modifying the designs as they exist now would be a little bit more difficult. We would definitely want to take the creative input from the professionals who do this for a living.
I do like the colors of one. I agree with everybody about the herring. I've seen maybe 5 herrings in 45 years. But on number 2 or 3, could we use that lighter blue instead of the green, or is that green? It looks green to me. Yeah.
Can take it back to the design team for sure.
Yeah. Because I do like the lighter blue also. I just think the herring's is way out there. We could have the saw cutting an oyster in half. I'm just kidding.
It's a heron, right? Heron. Blue
I
heron.
don't know.
I
don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heron.
And by the way, you Lifer Shelton folks out there that keep saying you've never seen these things, I'm pretty sure you can walk out to
I've seen them
at the yacht club and they're there.
yeah.
I've seen them, just not a whole bunch of them.
Which is why the yacht club has it on their sign.
Right.
At the yacht club. Yeah. It's also on this the benches like they saw in the photos earlier in the presentation.
Yeah.
In their area. So again, if we're looking at differentiating, might be something to consider.
Mhm. Is that number 2 and number 3? Are those letters green? They look black on my screen.
They're green. They're a really dark green, I believe.
Dark
so
green?
they might look black. Let me go back. So you can kind of see them on the different color backgrounds. So on the lighter backgrounds, I think they're like that light tan is a little more obviously green, and on the white, but it's a really dark green. So
Right. Well, I think if we could tweak that a little bit with the red, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, we can definitely play with the colors, and I'll share those with you before we send them out for a public review. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody's comfortable with us sending the top 3 out for to take a look at.
I'm good with it.
I am as well.
I have to say,
Everybody else good with it?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks,
good
Mary.
place to start.
yeah, this is a starting point,
Yeah.
and we'll go from here. So.
I know you put a lot of work into it and I appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay, should we move on to
Good night.
move on to dinner? I mean,
Yeah.
do we have any new items for discussion? This meeting is adjourned at 6:53.